In today's video, I'm going to talk about the concept of the term cost of the work. The term cost of the work is a defined term in the American Institute of Architects contracts. Defined terms are terms that have a specific meaning within the contract, and they're always capitalized. So it's very important when you have a defined term in a contract to maintain the consistency of that term. So cost of the work, sometimes called the construction cost, or there may be other terms that people use. You've got to make sure that in all of your correspondence, your letters, your meeting minutes, and so forth, your invoices in particular, you use that same term. Here's how the AIA document B101, that's the 2007 version of the owner-architect agreement, the primary one. Here's what the definition of cost of the work is. It's the total cost to the owner to construct all elements of the project designed or specified by the architect, and it includes the contractor's general conditions, costs, overhead, and profit. Now, the cost of the work, the definition goes on and it says it does not include things like the architect's compensation, the cost of the land, rights-of-way financing, contingencies, and other costs that the owner might incur. So the cost of the work is essentially the construction cost, which is different than the project costs. So the owner will have two budgets. One budget for the entire project, which includes attorney's fees and other folks, the cost of the land, and including the cost of the work. And separately, a cost which is of more importance to the architect, the cost of the work. So why is that important to the architect? Well, for one thing, the AIA documents require that the architect periodically during his work notify the owner of any changes to the owner's budget for the cost of the work. In other words, the architect is designing the project. Today, the cost of the work based on the architect's design is X. As the project proceeds, maybe the owner is adding certain things. Costs of various items such as steel or concrete may change in the marketplace. So at various stages during the design, schematic design, design development, and so forth, those costs may change, and the contract requires the architect to keep the owner updated as to the cost of the work. Once the bids are in and the owner accepts a particular price from a contractor, that becomes the cost of the work, and then that's subsequently adjusted by change orders and so forth. So if the architect is doing the work and his fee is based on a percentage of the construction cost, that percentage is based on the cost of the work. So in other words, what is the owner paying? One problem can arise if the architect is doing work for a church or a hospital where the owner may get free work. So the question may come up, this free work, this contributed work by, let's say, a parishioner of a church, is that part of the cost of the work or not? Two solutions to that to avoid any ambiguity. One is that the contract gets modified at the outset to include the value of those items at market rates. I think a better approach, though, is to simply change the way the architect is paid to make it a flat fee. Once the contract with the contractor comes in, or even before that, once the design is really finalized and you really know what you're working with, it's usually possible to establish what that project should cost. And at that point, modifying the fee arrangement from a percentage of the cost of the work to just simply a flat fee eliminates any ambiguities down the road, eliminates any changes in the cost due to material price fluctuations and so on, and would certainly account for any free work that churches or hospitals might get. The other question that frequently arises is that architects are sometimes not very good at estimating. So during the design phases and the construction documents phase, it may be difficult for an architect to come up with an accurate cost of the work. Frequently, owners hire a construction manager or contractor to provide help to the architect in establishing costs. What is the cost of this particular item? And that's a great help for the architect in meeting the owner's budget. The contract should provide that the architect is entitled to rely on this cost information furnished by the construction manager. The architect is now not providing budgeting information. He's simply doing the design work and the construction documents, and the construction manager is providing all the cost input. And if the architect is designing to a particular cost that's furnished by the construction manager and he believes that's accurate, and it turns out that the bids come in higher, the architect should not be penalized for that. So make sure that the contract in that type of situation provides that the architect can rely on those cost estimates prepared by the owner's other consultants, construction managers, contractors, whatever. So that's the cost of the work. It's an important concept for architects. Make sure that you read your contract and understand what the definition of that is in your particular contract.